we're going to talk about the stories that aren't told at all.
But like I always think of like the saints as like who wouldn't ask their ancestors how to do things better?
And I think really what we can get at here in terms of, the Christian faith message that we're trying to get to is that is talking about the value of each person, and that
Welcome back to another week of the Lost Sheep Podcast. My name is Cole Bissett, and I'm joined here today by
Nazario Pangallo
and
Evan Aber.
And welcome back to another week. We are excited for this episode, this show. What episode is this, Evan? Do you know what episode it is?
Episode number 72.
72. We've been going on for a long run at this point. Evan, do you remember what episode you joined us
Oh,
for?
we've had this debate before. I don't remember. I feel like it was in the 40s, right? I feel like it was in the 40s.
We are nearly a year removed from that happening because you came on during Christmas break with Cole one time.
Ooh,
Then Caroline, when did Caroline come on, during the fall or the spring?
It was the fall.
The fall. And then you started full time in the spring. We originally thought that was going to be your last semester at Alabama. Crazy
Yeah.
enough.
That's true.
Yeah.
And then
Look where we are now.
yeah.
Yeah, man. Gosh, look where we are now.
Yeah, now he's engaged to that girl that he brought on the
Craziness.
show. It's weird stuff, bro.
Yeah,
Crazy.
the Lost Sheep relationship dating show. It's gonna be like like a dating show. We're gonna be Love Island, Lost Sheep Love Island edition. Yeah, absolutely.
So
But
it's just going to be a show where it's not Love Island. It's basically like The Bachelor. We're just searching for Cole.
yeah.
Hey,
That's
Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Lost Sheep Podcast. Thank you all for joining. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, wherever you can find us. We only have about a month left of in-person Lost Sheep Podcast before Christmas break takes hold, and we'll be back on full StreamYard video, so enjoy it while it lasts. We just got done with fall break. I know, Evan, you have some very exciting stuff you could tell us about your fall break.
So the funniest story, and if you're on video, this is just hilarious. If you're on audio, the top of my microphone just unscrewed off of my mic stand. And Cole for weeks has been struggling with how to put these on, and clearly he still has not mastered the art yet. But yeah, for fall break, I went. I guess I can hold it like this. For fall break, I went and we had a retreat that my dad wrote and runs back home in Kingwood. Super excited for it. I was super happy, a little bit anxious and nervous, but just a wonderful experience, a wonderful retreat. Such a good time. It was good to see my dad and a couple of friends from back home. But yeah, it was one of those retreats that a few of the guys came up to me afterwards, and they were like, I'll recall on one conversation specifically, a guy said, it's kind of cliche to be like, when somebody asks you, like, how was a retreat? And you're like, like, it was life-changing. It was like, it feels like weird or cliche or, like, storybook to say that, but, like, it's true. Like, it was a little bit life-changing. So I'm just glad. I'm really hype. And, it's one of those things that, like, it's not if, it's when. And just talking with the people here and the people who came, and they're like, yeah, we need to do that again, right? We need to figure out how to do that again. And so I'm obviously just super excited to see where it goes from here. Yeah.
What about you, Nazario? How was your week?
It was pretty good. Yeah, I went home for fall break. This is a little bit, ladies and gentlemen, I am trying to produce while doing this, and the maneuvering of the microphone. I might be looking at the camera more today, which is a little odd. Trying not to look at you guys, like my neck is straining. If you're on audio and can't see this, there's a lot of things going. If you're on audio, you need to go to the video for this one because there are some interesting things happening in the first 5 minutes. But, I went home. My brother ran in the state cross country meet, and for the first time ever in Beechwood High School history, they got on the podium. They were third place in the state. So pretty great performance. The first time they've ever done that.
How did he do individually?
Individually, he was like 10 seconds off his PR. And which is pretty good for a state meet. Like it's very hard to run your best like at this course. And then he was about 40, I think it was either 41st or 42nd in the state. So since his freshman year, which is when he started cross country, he has cut down over 2 minutes off of his time, which is, I think, pretty cool. Very cool to see him do that and to see his team do that. They had like 4 guys finish in the top 40, which is pretty solid. And then hopefully next year they're going to grow another age and they've get everybody returning, can hopefully go for a state title.
Yeah, I always love listening.
You're the cross
Yeah.
cross country guy, Cole. So
Yeah, really cool moment to be able to share that you can place with your team in the top 3 at state. It's really incredible to be able to do that. Let's see. For me, my week was a lot of laying down on the couch and a lot of pain from being sick. So I had a pretty miserable weekend. Evan said it was because I didn't go to the retreat, so maybe God was just getting back at me, which is possible.
Hey, you went to a concert though, did you not?
I did eventually. I went to the doctor finally for the sickness. It took me 2 or 3 days to go. But I went to the doctor and they gave me some
We're just going to check that as a joke. That was a joke. You can still hear me?
yeah.
Oh, that was a joke. I did not actually mean that God was punishing Cole for not coming to the retreat.
But anyway, they gave me some prescribed drugs and some steroids, and I loaded up before the concert and got to go to the concert, so that was awesome. Really cool show. It's a lot of fun. We were supposed to dress up as one of their songs since it was Halloween night, so we did. So it was really neat to get to do that.
Tell
And
us
this
your
was-
costume, Cole.
Oh, and this was Top House Band, right? Top House?
Yeah, Top House.
Top House.
Mine, I had to scrounge, show
You
my
didn't dress
costume.
up, did you? Oh,
I did,
good.
but
Okay.
it was like this song is called Snapshot. So I wore a camera.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Woo.
Cole. I thought your family was doing
Boo.
Airplane as your
Oh,
costume.
well,
That
I
just
was originally until I got sick, and then I was like, I don't have time for that. 'Cause
They
I
have a
was
song
dying.
named Airplane?
Yeah, the airport. They've got a song named Airport.
Sorry, Airport,
So I was
yes.
going to dress up like an airplane. Anyways, they have
You're
a song.
so lame,
The
dude,
best
for
one,
putting on
I think
camera.
my favorite costume was my dad's, because my dad, there's a song called Written in the Rain, and apparently Oasis, before they came Oasis, were called The Rain, and so he bought one of the Rain shirts and had a pen that he put on the top of the shirt, so like Written in the Rain. I don't know, I thought it was a fun little pun, but yeah.
Well, fun weekends all around, and as school ramps up, we are just want to reinvigorate our commitment to getting episodes out. I know this
Yes.
week, our schedule building was abysmal, but just want to, we're dedicated to getting an episode out every week and to making sure that we produce high quality stuff. But without further ado, let's move on to our quote of the week.
Ladies and gentlemen, the quote of the week.
That was awesome. I didn't have to transition into that right now. I just, press the button. I'm
Mhm.
just class
Yeah,
by
shout
Evan right there. Cole, you're gonna do the next one. It's gonna be electric. I'm so pumped. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, Cole brought our quote of the week for this week. Cole, would you like to intro the quote of the week?
Yep. So last week we talked a lot about music and had Andrew Goldstein on the podcast. So it was a really cool experience, and those were a lot of. We got to talk about the stories that are told through music. Well, now we're going to talk about the stories that aren't told at all. So this is a quote from Maya Angelou, I believe is how you pronounce her name. I looked it up.
Maya Angelou.
Angelou.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really? Maya Angelou. And it goes like this. There's no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. One more time. There's no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. So, first thoughts from you two.
Yeah. So I just looked up. Say the name again for me.
Maya Angelou.
Yeah, and so she lived until about 2014, died around the age of 75, I think is what I just read somewhere around there. So she was a civil rights activist. And so, funny enough, I've been in a women's studies class this year, and so definitely a different perspective we're getting right there, not only from, the gender side of things, but the race side of things. So interesting to think about her in regards to this and what she's trying to say. And so I think from right off the bat, just thinking about people whose perspective, whose stories that just go by the wayside. And we have obviously these quote unquote main characters in life that sees all the attention. But what about all the people who don't get attention but still have amazing stories? And I think really what we can get at here in terms of, the Christian faith message that we're trying to get to is that it's talking about the value of each person, and that each person has value. Each person created in the image and likeness of God, yet individual and different, which means that they each can provide a glimpse into the image of God. Because obviously God is this infinite being that we can never fully grasp. But if we human beings are images of God, then we all can be a piece of the puzzle, a little picture into God. And so all of those stories are unique, but think about all the ones that aren't told. Think about our Mother Mary, and she has this incredible story of what it was like seeing the angel, the Annunciation, the visitation, bearing the Son, bearing Jesus Christ, and then seeing him throughout this time. But do we really see Mary get to tell her story? We really don't. And so that's like an example I think of these incredible stories, these incredible people that never get told, that could have given us such an incredible glimpse into God and into his image. So that's kind of what I think about right off the bat. Cole, do you have anything, or Evan, that you can bounce off this, or your own little thoughts?
Yeah, a little bit. A quick shout out. So we're at the retreat, and I'm wearing my Lost Sheep shirt. And so I want to shout out two groups. The first is a fellow podcasting, a fellow podcaster, the Common Sense Catholic on Spotify. It's run by one of the guys that came and helped out with the retreat here in Alabama. He's from Kingwood, back where I live, but they kind of do a little bit of simpler episodes, 30 minutes, 25 minutes, stuff like that. But it's a lot of, just his tagline is, "We're conversationalists, not apologists." So it's a lot of just breaking stuff down, simply. But a little bit shorter episodes, a little bit more infrequent releases, not weekly like us. But great guy, good conversations. The second group of people I want to shout out is, I'm wearing my Lost Sheep shirt, and Father Sean McEwen, who's a Salesian priest, stops me and he says, "Turn around." And he takes a picture of it, and he sends it to the Salesian group chat, like, I guess, with a bunch of his brothers. And he's like, "You need to send me an episode. Like, I'm interested in hearing your talk." So I just shot our podcast to our retreat group from this weekend. I sent him the Andrew Goldstein one. I thought that one was pretty good, and it's pretty recent. And it's, hopefully they'll listen to that. So shout out them. They were wonderful this weekend. I kind of jokingly said to Cole right before this episode, not really joking, but I was like, what story do I have inside of me? What do I have going on that, like, somebody wants to hear? What does it mean to have an untold story? And my first thought for this is kind of like, you look at the future, you look at, like, what you haven't done yet, right? And that's your story. So often we talk about, like, we're not in control. We don't know what's going to happen. Only God knows what's going to happen. We can only control what we react to, and what we do with that. We can't control what happens to us or anything of that nature. And so, like, so much of our untold story is what hasn't happened yet. The other thing I bring to mind is, and I'm gonna kind of waffle for a second while I look this up, but it is No Shave November, which means, I want to check this. Isn't it Men's Mental Health?
Is it?
Cancer Research and Prevention. Never mind. But just
also, it is also Men's Health Awareness Month, also known as Movember.
okay, that's what I thought. I was gonna say, yeah. So it's also, like, it's a good reminder. Yeah.
Mental health, prostate cancer, and testicular cancer.
Okay, yeah. So it's Men's Month.
Men's Month.
So it's just a good reminder of, like, as there's a lot of resources for, like, we want to hear your untold story, right? There's, like, a lot to tell. And so it's a good time of the year to bring up, like, talk about suicide, talk about mental health, talk about, people who don't have the opportunity to go home to their families or to go home to friends and stuff like that, right? It's a really tough time of the year for people who, have to go through that, loneliness. And so I think that was kind of the first thing that came to my mind. Yeah.
For me, the first thing that I go to anytime I hear, like, untold stories or moments where somebody who should be appreciated more really isn't appreciated enough. And I managed to sneak them into podcasts every once in a while, just because I love them so much.
You
And
Need
gotta
to
guess
Breathe?
Evan?
it's Need to Breathe. Last
Who are you gonna guess?
Same thing. I was just
Okay,
seeing
yeah.
if you got it too.
Yeah.
last album that they released a single first, and the single is called Everknown, and it's all about these untold heroes and to the like our daily lives. And there's a video that goes along with it, the music video, and the people that are featured in it are the janitor at school. It's the person that does our lawn for the cottages. It's stuff like that. These people that do all these stories behind the scenes that we don't realize. And I like where you were going with that and everything, because I think it's so true. Sometimes we just forget that there are people that got us to the point that we are here, like at today, and while they may not be as well known, as famous, as popular, their stories is still something that should be told, because we get to live in their story. What they've done for us actually gives us a chance to create our own untold story. And so that's the first little point that I wanted to touch on. That if you are kind of interested in that song, it's called Everknown by Need to Breathe. You should listen to it. It's really, really, really cool song. But the direction that I kind of wanted to take this was the route of confession. There's no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you. I think this is a lot of our story. Anytime we go to confession, we go and we sit in line, and we are in pain because we have to tell our story, and it kind of sucks. It's like, oh, we have to go confess a sin that we did, and it's like kind of shameful, and you're like, I'm really nervous to do this. And that's kind of how like the process of confession works. But like you notice that the longer you keep that story untold, the worse it actually gets, the more shame you start to feel. And there is no greater agony than that. Like the longer you wait, the worse you will feel. And so I think that speaks a lot to the gravity, the brevity of confession, the amount of importance that it actually has.
That would be gravity.
Gravity.
Yeah.
The gravity of confession, and how much importance it actually bears on us as Catholics, because it truly is our own therapy. It's a way to tell our story, in a sense of the story that we can't tell everybody else around us, but it's our way to tell our untold story to Christ. And so I guess that's the direction I wanted to take it. Do you have anything to bounce off of that?
Yeah, and I would agree with you wholeheartedly with everything that you're saying. And when you wait to go to confession, or not even confession, just if you wait to admit to someone that you know that you've made a mistake against them, they don't know about it, or you're just kind of dealing with it, you haven't talked to them or figured it out, you feel that agony of just bearing that on your own and inside of you. And my question to you guys, if you can think of anything, is why do you think we feel this way? Like, maybe go into that. But this is kind of my question for the non-Catholic Christians out there that we have, is like, I genuinely don't know how they can like work through this without like having confession and not being able to go and to tell these untold stories, no matter how bad they may be. When maybe I wasn't going to confession as consistently, and being able to do that, I remember how much the weight of the shame and the guilt was. And I listened to Christian music, and you hear like most of the Christian music that's mainstream Christian music is from non-Catholics, and you hear them talk about like feeling that shame and guilt a lot. And I think of a Toby Mac song of he talks about one lyric where he like wakes up in the middle of the night like fighting these demons of shame. And it's like, does this have that big of an effect? And I wonder that, because I can relate to when I felt like he did, but now not feeling that way while still going through the same struggles. Like, you still have those temptations to struggle, you still fall, but that big difference of being able to tell that untold story, not having to go alone through that agonizing and bearing that on your own. So just a question genuinely out there, but for y'all to keep going into is like, why do we think that telling these stories and to bring them out into the light, why does that have such an effect? And why does not telling it have such a negative effect? What do you guys think?
So on our first Bible study back with you,
I don't know what you're about to say, so I can't.
when we
answer
did
that.
we talked about shame and the prodigal son and the father.
Yeah, that sounds like the first one back.
Yeah. And we actually talked about this a lot. And Evan really challenged us that week, and it was like a chance for us to be more intimate together as just men, in the sense of just being more personal and upfront with each other, and like being real about where we stand and what it looks like when we go back to the father, just like the prodigal son did, and to us, like what it would look like if we go back to our parents and say, oh, I actually messed up at this point and I've been hiding it for you for a little bit.
Yeah.
Like what that feels like. And I remember you had a lot of really good points from that. Is there anything like that you can bring back from that Bible study that would kind of help answer where Nazario's wanting?
Yeah. I mean, I think that like the biggest thing, right? It's difficult, right? Because the human components and the spiritual components of sin are different, are worked through differently, right? So like, the first thing I would start with is like obviously some non-Christians, don't have the moral compass that we have. So things like that, if I don't think something is a sin, something's not going to break me up about it, right? If I don't think something's immoral, then I'm not going to be broken up about it. But like the first stuff is like dealing with that spiritually, right? So like, we talk about like a lot of people think about like, oh, I need to work through it personally before I go to confession. And that's wrong. And the reason that's wrong is because confession allows us to reinvigorate ourselves with those graces and those mercies from Christ. And so think about it like this. If I'm trying to if I'm stabbed and I'm trying to stop the bleeding, right? And I put it over my hand and I say, "Oh, well, I've got to stop the bleeding before I bandage this up." Right? Like, it doesn't really make sense. Like the bandage is how you stop the bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
And confession is the same way, right? You go to confession, you get that gunk, the spiritual gunk taken care of. And then that allows you to, start to put the bandages on, right? It allows you to start to have those graces, have those mercies from Christ, and really pray with and deal with and work through those more human emotions, those more physical things, right? Of shame, of guilt, of, whatnot. I also think it's important that, like, it's never two things. Like, consistent sin, habitual sin, is never something that, like, you beat, right? You're never going to beat a sin that you consistently fall into. It just doesn't happen. It comes and rears its ugly head, 17 years down the line, right? And the other thing is, like, you can never be complacent about it, right? You can't overcome something, right? You can't overcome a big sin. You can't overcome shame and guilt and all this stuff and then be like, okay, whatever, right? Cool, like I did that. It's going to come right back, right? It's going to be around the corner at some point, right? And that's like the devil's trick, to have us live in sin of like, man, I am the worst, I'm terrible, I'm horrible. And it's almost like having some like mental thing where you still think you're injured, but you're not, right? Because at the end of the day, like the sin is what's injuring our relationship to God, right? And so if we've gone to confession, if we've made a true confession, then that means that sin is no longer there, right? And so that thing that was causing us shame and guilt is no longer there. We have no reason to feel that. But the lie of the devil is saying that, oh, you are the worst, you did this sin is you, this is your identity, this is who you are, right? And obviously, like, there's going to be consequences from the actions you do, right? I'm not saying that, like, if you make a stupid mistake, if you kill somebody, if you are committing any of these sins that are going to involve other people, right? There's going to be consequences from that. But those are human consequences. Those are not consequences of the Spirit, more so of your action. The consequences of the Spirit are sin and that separation from Christ. And the consequences of confession is the reinvigoration of that relationship and the healing of that gap and the erasure of that sin. And, then you can work on the shame and the guilt, knowing that that sin no longer remains on your soul, and knowing that, hey, I'm reconnected to God's grace. I'm reconnected to God's mercy, his love, and he wants the best for me. That was a really long answer, but I think that was well put, maybe.
Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
And I'll also say the other thing is like it or not, confession is very unique to Catholics, right? Like confession is only found in Catholicism, right? There are other other denominations have confession. I'm air quoting, and this is where I put my bias in and say like we are Catholics, right? So like this is our domain, but the thing that like we have and why confession is so pertinent to us is because like we believe that the priest is acting in the person of Christ in that, right? So a lot of people have issues with confession because they say like, oh, I don't need to go to a priest and confess. Like, the priest is just a human, without realizing that, confession is under the guise of this is Christ, right? This is Christ personified. And, truly, as we all believe, right, we are all only and truly absolved of our sins from Christ. A very interesting article, if you haven't read it. The Pope just reaffirmed the teaching on Mary is not being the co-mediatrix of grace, because she isn't, or the co-mediatrix of salvation. Truly, actually, is the terminology I should use. But truly, Jesus is the only one who can absolve us our sins, right? The God the Father.
And
the Trinitarian
if you mind like going into that at all, you don't have to. But like
the Mary thing,
confirming it, you mean like this was never. This was never a teaching, and this was just confirming the.
Yeah. So funny enough, we were talking about this the other week with there are some cultures across the world that almost worship Mary as divine, and that's not true. Mary's not divine. Mary's a human. But basically, what the Pope was reaffirming is that and what the Catholic Church was reaffirming was that Mary was never a savior, right? Mary is what we consider as a mediatrix of grace, right? And what this means is that she can be an intercessor, right? She can ask for grace from Christ, but she does not pour grace out herself. And again, this is my heresy check, right here. That grace comes from God alone, right? And so we can ask Mary for grace. We can ask for her intercession for grace. We can ask for her intercession for prayers, but she is not our salvation. She is not a redemptor. And so the term co-redemptor, or all of that is not true. Mary is not divine. She's not the one we worship as God. We still believe Mary to be the mother of God, right? Theotokos, mother of our Lord, but that does not make her divine, because Christ was fully human and fully divine, right? Mary is his human mother.
Yeah. And that's not to take away anything from Mary in the sense of like we still honor and respect her very, very much so in our relationship with Mary. Just as our relationship with the saints is really important because, in heaven they are very, very, very much alive. And so when we're praying, we're asking for their intercession on our lives.
Yeah, and I always use the example, and this is a great conversation. We're way away from the quote, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a question right after this because it was odd to me that you didn't ask this already. But like I always think of like the saints as like who wouldn't ask their ancestors how to do things better, right? And like really praying to the saints is that, right? Like I'm rarely praying to the saints and being like, hey man, what's up? Like that's a God prayer, right?
Yeah.
I'm praying to God and telling him about my day. I'm not praying to my confirmation saint is Saint Luigi, right? I'm not praying to Saint Luigi and be like, what's up, Lou? How we doing? Like that's no. I'm like, intercede for me. Like I'm struggling with this, right? And I could really use some intercessors, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's kind of like who wouldn't want to ask those people who have done it better than you, who have clearly done it better than you, for their advice. And so my question, returning to the quote, right, there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you by Maya Angelou. What is the definition of agony? No.
Already have it looked up.
No. You already have it looked up?
Yeah.
I'm shocked shocked that you did not immediately ask us what the definition of agony was. So
I have the
therefore,
definitions pulled up, Cole, for when you
Cole
give us your
Bissett.
answer, my guy.
don't look at me. Don't look at his computer.
Oh man.
What is the definition of agony?
I have both the dictionary
And the
answer
biblical.
and the Catholic answer.
Catholic. The Catholic.
Catholic. Let's see what you got, Mr. Bissett.
The
Oh,
Catholic's
boy.
easy.
For me, the reason I actually looked up the definition. Untold is where I went first, so that's funny that I don't know why I went that way, but that makes a
Untold,
lot more
alright,
sense.
cool.
Agony is a lot
What was
better.
it to not tell?
It's to not tell, so
Yeah.
it didn't really provide me very much
No,
of an
I think it
answer.
wouldn't.
So I decided not to bring it up at all. But let's see, agony. The definition of agony. I think the preface of agony and its connotation is very like. It's very dark. It's very brooding. Like, this is serious pain. It's not like a fleeting pain. Agony is you are living in suffering, and it's continual. It doesn't stop. And I think it's probably why there's that choice of wording. And this is because as long as you keep that story untold, you will live in that agony, and it will get increasingly worse, as agony normally does if you
Yep.
don't let it out. And so,
The biblical and Catholic. Would you take a swing at that? Because I would agree with that for a definition for, the word agony.
yeah.
Dictionary, we've got extreme physical or mental suffering. So
But say
Okay,
say
so
the
there.
one about before death.
the final stages of a difficult or painful death.
Now, what about biblical or Catholic? I like that definition. I'm going to come back to it in a second this way.
Biblical or
Or
Catholic?
Catholic, yeah.
Are you asking me, or are you going to work with me on this?
Oh, I'll ask you. I'll work with you. Think about before death. Yeah.
Which is funny because I have the answer. So
Well, you have the agony
brother,
in the
there's a
garden.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
bang,
That's
bang.
where I'm hitting on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think this is interesting, right? Because it talks about there's no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you. And what was Christ's story, right? Like we talk about how like this being the agony in the garden, right? We talk about like, oh, he's sweating blood, right? Like this is extreme stuff, right? What greater agony is there than him knowing that he is about to die on the cross for all of our sins, about to save the entirety of humanity forever. Bro's about to do the best thing ever, like of all time, in all time, and like nobody knows.
And what's so crazy about that, and the reason my mind just imploded, is because had he not had the agony, like that agony of the fact that he knew that in order for his story to be told,
Mm-hmm.
he had to die.
Well, he also had to have the agony,
Yeah.
right? The cool thing is like, what I'm thinking of is like, if Christ does not go through with the crucifixion,
None of
with
us would be.
with
yeah.
full knowledge of knowing what he was undertaking,
Mm-hmm.
then he would not be Christ, right?
No.
Like that's kind like the thing is that the thing, and again, not deep theologian. I'm just this is my heresy check. The thing is that Christ knows, right? Christ knows what's about to happen, and not only does he go through with it, but he is in so much like distress, so much physical and mental anguish. There's another definition.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying on agony.
Physical and mental.
Physical
instead of
and mental
suffering. Yeah.
suffering. He's in so much physical and mental anguish that he is literally, like his body is literally destroying itself, right? And so like, yeah, there is no greater agony than that untold story. And the greatest agony of all, right? The untold story of our salvation. And with that, I think it's a good time to transition to our Shepherd of the Week. Oh, dang it. Our practical prayer practice. That was such a good transition.
Ladies and gentlemen, the practical prayer practice of the week.
All right, Nazario, you get the wonderful pleasure of introing
you
this
that
segment
failed
for us.
transition.
dude,
So,
Evan
go
almost did that so
I know.
wonderfully.
I know.
Cole, Evan, don't do it. Cole is going to transition to the Shepherd of the Week.
Okay.
I don't know how he's going to do it, but we're going to be ready for it. It's going to be electric.
So my management teacher says, he transitions in class and he's like, this is going to be awkward. It's going to be weird. It's going to be ungainly. And I'm just going to change PowerPoints. And then we're going to be talking about a new topic. And that's going to be the transition. I'm seeing something, not a far cry from that in our future.
Hope not. No, I believe in you, Cole. But our practical prayer practice of the week for this week So we've been talking about untold stories this entire time in different ways. And so our goal for your prayer this week is to journal stories to God. And we could have gone with different things. We could have challenged y'all to tell stories to other people, but, we want to focus on the theme of prayer still, the practical prayer practice. So journal stories to God. If you're not a journaling person, you can either push yourself to try it this week, or if it's really that bad, you can just pray, and tell stories to God. But we're going to challenge y'all to do journaling. So this could be as simple as a story of your day. A story of something you did today, something that you found that stuck out. It could be something that God really showed you, or a way that he worked in your life, and you really want to tell him this story, whatever it may be. But that is our practical prayer practice for this week. And as we talked about with our quote, plenty of times, there's no greater agony than bearing an untold story. Don't let your story go untold. Tell it to the Lord. He wants to hear, and he wants to enter into that with you, whether that be the worst story ever that he can help redeem, whether it be the best story ever that you can praise him through. You can use this story for incredible prayer. So that is our practical prayer practice of the week. Do you guys have anything on that?
You have any add-ons? Are you good?
Do you have any add-ons?
I mean, a little bit, but I wanted to see if you had anything.
You go first.
Well, but there's not.
Oh, don't worry.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
But there's not anything after my add-on. Okay.
Are you guys arguing mid-debate? Or mid-podcast?
Okay.
Just someone go.
Well, so all I was gonna say is just, like kind of harping on what Nazario said. Even if you don't think you're good at it, right? Just try it out. And it doesn't have to be like I was talking about earlier with just, telling God about your day. Like, you don't have to make up a story. Just,
This is not J.R. Tolkien telling his child a story that turns into the Lord of the Rings at the end of the day.
I sent a text. Hold on, let me pull up this text real fast.
Of course, good pull. I give it to you.
I sent a text the other week, and I said something along the lines of, hold on. We are not Shakespeare's, Tolkien's, or Tolstoy's. You are you. That will be enough. And I mean, truly, that's the point, right? God's not asking for more than you are. He's not asking for anything more than just you to be committed to him, which is funny because I think we're going to talk about a guy here in a second that was pretty committed to God in his writing. And so, just be you, just write authentically you. And if that's, hey, God, I made eggs for breakfast today, right? So be it, right? You're sharing your day with Christ in a prayerful manner, right? So, to you.
Yep. So for me, a good practice that I've always had, that I just love doing, especially during adoration, is this is your chance to write about your private business, and kind of. There's no way that just happens so well. Anyways, and put together in the form of a letter. That's the way I always do it, and it's the way that I found most beneficial for me, especially when you're at adoration, because God is literally sitting there right in front of you, and you are getting your chance to write out your thoughts and all your words and put them into a form of letters. And letters have been very effective, especially in our church history. Notably, our Shepherd of the Week this week has been very good at that as well. So we're going to transition over to that so y'all can meet him.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Shepherd of the Week.
And so, Cole,
if we're going to give a rating system, I'd probably give it 3.75 Chali.
yeah.
That's not bad. I'll take it. Out of 5, right? That's his Charlie rating. Okay, that's not
so yeah. Without further ado, my idea kind of from this, and I don't know if I've told you yet, and that's sarcastic, by the way. Caroline and I have been reading through the letters, the epistles at the back of the Bible, and if you don't know,
there's only epistles at the back of the Bible. Am I wrong with that?
I mean, no, Revelation.
I just thought it was funny. You're the epistles at the back of the Bible.
Oh yeah.
Those are the only place you can find epistles.
That's the only place you'll find epistles.
Sorry, just being very.
I was thinking
critique-ish.
You were saying, hey, there's only epistles at the back of the Bible. I was saying, hey, there's only epistles at the back of the Bible. Yeah. But no, I've been reading through the epistles which are at the back of the Bible. And as you may know, most of those are written by St. Paul, who and nay, Saul was a Christian, a Christian killer, a killer of Christians in the early church, and was converted, and began to preach and teach. And so one of the things that he does so well is just really getting riled up.
There are some sick Instagram edits of like when
yeah,
Paul would write somebody a
Um,
letter, letter to the church
Galatians-
in Romans or something.
Galatians chapter 3. Hold on. Let me pull it up. Galatians chapter 3. Bang. O stupid Galatians, who has bewitched you, before whose eyes Jesus Christ was publicly portrayed as crucified? He goes back again and says, O stupid Galatians, again and again. Brothers, in human terms, I say that no one can make sense of this. And so, St. Paul wasn't afraid to get in there. He was a dog. He is fighting. St. Paul was stoned. He was scourged twice. He was put in prison 3 times, twice before his death. Like, this guy was a beast, right? And then, of course, he dies like the single most Christ-like death being the one that Christ suffered he was crucified, right? And so, like, he is truly a man of faith, truly a good shepherd of his people, really loved, cared for his people, and truly, a person willing to fight and die for the faith. But I think, a lot of people say this in this kind of cliche, it's easy to die for the faith, right? It takes 10 seconds to die for the faith. But he lived and fought every single day for the faith as well as die for the faith. So truly an impressive character, and truly deserves to be Shepherd of the Week.
Yeah, if you're wondering about Paul's epistles, if you've read them, not read them, 7 of them are, I guess there's more than 7 that are quote-unquote named by, believed to be written by Paul. 7 are confirmed with certainty, and those are Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, Philippians, 1st Thessalonians, and Philemon. And it says that there are 6 others that are traditionally attributed to him, but somehow they don't have
Ephesians,
confirmed.
Colossians, 2 Thessalonians, Timothy, and Hebrews.
Titus as well
Titus.
on
Yeah.
here. So is Titus and Hebrews the same thing, different
No,
names? Or
Hebrews is a weird book, though.
Yeah, so if you ever want to read from Paul, learn how to, tell some good stories, not just stories. These are like legit letters. Definitely go read there. Also, just reading the Word of God, a great place to start. Evan, you've been on an epistle journey, as you talked about, and you've challenged us to do this. And obviously, the Old Testament is more difficult to read than the New Testament. What do you think it sticks out about Paul's writing specifically that makes it, more engaging for us? Is it just our times? What about him? What do you think, the way he writes?
Gosh, it's relevant. It's so relevant. I read Paul and I see our own people, right? Like, there's a little bit of Galatia in all of us. There's a little bit of Colossians. There's a little bit of Corinthians, right? So it's relatable, right? The problems that plague these communities still plague our communities today. The second thing is, Paul really writes for different community needs. So, for example, Galatians was a community under fire, right? The story of the Galatians letter is that people had been falsely preaching against Paul, preaching against his apostolate. And so his letter to the Galatians is very fiery, very worked up, very like, these are false prophets, like, this is what we believe, very much reaffirming the faith and saying, like, Jesus Christ died for you, right? And he died for you, and he loves you. And so if I love Jesus, then therefore I cannot be bad, right? And so it's reinvigorating these churches to the mission and to Paul, right? And to Jesus Christ. Whereas, like, you go into Corinthians, and it's very much a different, like, very much a love letter, very much a here's teaching. And then you go into Romans, and it's very deeply theological. It's very deep concepts, a little more heady than most of the other ones, right? But those are the people you're writing to, right? And so, like, you can kind of pick up different portions of where you at in your faith journey, and it's all Paul. It's all epistles written by him, right? Whether you need to be reinvigorated, whether you need to be won over, whether you want to grow in your faith, whether you want to dive into more. And it also really teaches the story well of, like, how the church started, right? Acts of the Apostles obviously is like the story of the early church, but Paul's letters really show how the church spread and what they dealt with on a day-to-day basis, right? Things that we don't really deal with today sometimes, right? Obviously, we're not regularly outlawing heretics and things like that, or disputing deep faith claims like they were, right? When they were trying to figure out the church, and figuring out God's plan to go forward. But it is really interesting to see the arrival of the church across Europe and across Asia.
I got nothing else to say on that. I'm not gonna lie to you.
All right.
That was
Well, I was expecting. Did you expect Cole to say something there, Evan?
No, not at all.
No.
No.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to move into our final thoughts for this episode. Cole, do you think we need to get a transition for that or no?
nah.
Nah.
I think you've already butchered the transition if we transition
Yeah.
from here.
No. I'm saying, do we need a graphic?
Yeah.
Like we have.
Do I
no.
need to get another
The final
voice?
thoughts.
No.
For the-
It should
Most-
just be
most of the time.
it would be so fun. It was actually Justin Nazario's voice is raw.
But most
Like,
of the
that
time,
was
our
it.
final thoughts are completely devolved.
Yeah, it's like kind of just
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just a mess.
Anyway, I got nothing. I've talked a lot this episode. So, Cole, final thoughts.
Cole, give us your final
Thoughts from me. Be sure to think of your untold heroes in your community. I know we've talked a lot about the confession and your own untold stories, which still go to confession. It's an incredible experience. But I want to focus on this part just real quick at the end. Like, think of untold heroes in your community and just walk up and give them thanks. Just say thanks. You have no idea how far that can go in somebody's day, in somebody's life. And just words of gratitude can mean a lot to somebody. So anybody you can think of, whether it's a janitor, somebody that does your lawn, somebody that keeps your stuff in order, any of these things, all of these things those are the people that get you throughout your day. So just tell them thank you.
Yeah. And for me, Cole honestly touched on the exterior, the other people that tell their untold stories, to be wary of them and to listen to what they have to say. But don't forget about your untold stories. Don't let them be untold. Make sure that you are, one, telling God about your story, being vulnerable with Him, letting Him know what's going on. Obviously, He knows, but He wants to hear from you. And also, be a witness of the faith. Share your testimony. Only you have your own individual beautiful story that God has worked through, and it can work wonders if you just tell your story. We don't even know how it would work. We don't even know how our stories touch other people, but God knows, and God can use them. So don't let your stories go untold. Thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of the Lost Sheep Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, follow us. Don't forget about merchandise. We do not have a giveaway going on right now, correct, Cole?
No. Look for a mailbag episode, by the way. I know we've been promising it for like this
Months,
entire
literally.
semester,
Yeah.
but we've gotten through a big portion of like what our guests kind of portions was going to be. So look for a mailbag episode. That will be coming out soon. We plan to get that one up and going.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank y'all for tuning in, and God bless.